item number 5 and 16. Assemblymember Hernandez. Starting with number 5.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Assembly Bill 393 establishes, I'll first take up AB 393 if that's okay.
Good.
Okay. Assembly Bill 393 establishes the Veteran Resource Center's grant program under the Office of the Chancellor of the California Community Colleges. According to the CCC, an estimated 2.2 million veterans reside in California, the most in the nation. The number of veteran students is expected to increase dramatically as more military personnel serving in Iraq and Afghanistan complete their service. As these veterans transition back to civilian life, many attend one of California's 112 community colleges. In fact, it is estimated that over 60,000 veteran students are enrolled in the California Community College today. In 2010, the California Community College High-Tech Center Training Unit created a pilot program to establish veteran resource centers at California's community colleges. These veterans centers assist veteran students in re-entering the educational system by providing veteran student additional guidance and services. Recently, the Chancellor's Office released the Veterans Resource Center Review Project report, which cited the progress of several VRCs statewide. Within its findings, the Chancellor's Office found VRCs offered dedicated staff and support to veteran students, which help these students succeed. AB 393 builds on the success of the VRC pilot program by creating a statewide initiative to expand VRCs and encourages the creation of VRCs at campuses that currently do not offer them. We know that they're working. We know that they've done well. We want to bring it statewide. With me here today to testify in support of AB 393 is Ms. Martha McDonald and Fernando Salazar from Citrus College. Additionally, Myra Marshington and Elizabeth Salcedo of Citrus College, who will briefly speak in support.
And before you begin, if I could remind the witnesses that we'll do 2 witnesses, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and committee members, good afternoon and thank you for the opportunity to speak before you in support of Assembly Bill 393 Veterans Resource Centers. My name is Martha McDonald and I am the Dean of Students at Citrus College. One of the areas under my leadership is the Veterans Success Center, of which I've had the privilege to oversee for the past 5 years. A little bit about the center at Citrus College is that we were able to start our program due to the Walmart grant in 2009. The following year, we competed for the FIPSE, the Funds for Education for Post-Secondary Education grant to provide services for student veterans. However, that grant was only 3 years long. The college was able to utilize the funds to implement a holistic veterans program that included resources and interventions. It is through these services that I witnessed the impact the program has on our student veterans. As we heard just a minute ago, student veterans face many obstacles and challenges while they are in college. And so you've heard some of those already. I could also share with you empirical data that supports the positive impact of our Veterans Resource Centers. However, I think it is best validated by their voices. One Marine veteran shared with me that he's 27 years old and attending the college. I have been attending Citrus for a few years now, and I am close to graduating. I have been at Citrus longer than most students, and have finally accepted that I am not a normal student. I am a 3-tour combat veteran who was reluctant to realize I had severe adverse effects due to combat exposure at a very young age. I turned 20 in Iraq, 21 in Afghanistan, and 22 in Iraq. Citrus College Veterans Center have changed my life. I was severely struggling to adjust when I enrolled at the college because of the difficulties of acclimating to civilian life. I didn't do very well, but now I'm graduating this year, and thanks to the efforts and the continued support of the center. They didn't give up on me when I gave up on myself. He is now on his way to Cal State Los Angeles to pursue his dream of becoming a social worker. As a Marine veteran myself, the wife of a Marine veteran, the mother of 2 Marine veterans who served tours in Iraq, one who was medically discharged due to injuries he sustained while in Iraq, I can tell you that I am intimately aware of the challenges our veteran student population faces when transitioning from civilian life to the academic environment and to civilian life. It has been an honor and a privilege to work at an institution that provides this level of support. I am also so humbled by Assemblymember Roger Hernandez's effort. I have heard leaders say, this is the best generation, not because
If you
of
could
what
wrap
they...
up, please.
Yes, well, not because of what they have done, but what they can do. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make a difference in their lives by providing support for AB 393. Thank you all for your time.
Good afternoon, Chairman Medina and committee members. My name is Fernando Salazar, Jr. I'm a disabled combat veteran myself. I did 4 years in the Marine Corps, part of OIF and part of the invasion into Iraq in 2003. I'm also an alumni from Citrus, so I have seen everything they've done. When I first returned home, I struggled a lot. I slept with my gun under my pillow. I was paranoid, set up booby traps in my backyard. Couldn't maintain a job. I was getting fired. I couldn't function because of my PTSD, and I couldn't concentrate because of my TBI. So I decided to go back to school. I couldn't work. Used my GI Bill benefits, and I flunked. I couldn't make it in the classroom. I couldn't. And I tried to do it all alone. The next semester, I went into the vet center. Another vet took me in there to go buy just a Gatorade for $1. Tiny little room, two rooms and an office. And that room served a lot of purposes. It served as a resource center for us. It served as a fundraising room. It served as a place where we can go get mental health services, where we can do group therapy for veterans and help them during this transition. Most of you may not know this, but last year we lost 22 veterans a day in 2014. That's more veterans than we lost on the ground in Iraq that are making it home and can't follow up with that transition because it's so hard to navigate through the system. Sorry. We can change that. We have an opportunity here with Assembly Bill 393 to help the next group transition so that they can land more softly. The Veteran Center literally saved my life, and I don't know where I would be today if it wasn't for all the help and resources I received there. It's a place where you can go and you know you're not alone. And all the other stuff, that affects you. Being alone is the one thing that it just intensifies everything. And when you have these veteran centers on campuses, I've been working in for veterans for 4 years. I worked at Citrus. Currently, I work at Cal State LA, and I see the same thing. Veterans are willing to drive outside of the district and far just to go to a college that has a veteran center because they know that when they go there, they'll get the tools that they need to be successful, not just go there and not do anything with their benefits, get stuck there and end up getting 2 A's. They can succeed with the benefits that we're giving them and get the most out of their GI Bill. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support, if you'd state your name and the group that you're with.
Lorraine Ploss, State Legislative Chair for American Veterans. We highly support this. And secondly, on a personal level, myself, as a Vietnam-era vet, my husband and I are both graduates of this type of program with a good resource center at the community college level, and then following on to the UC system. I support this as well.
Pete Conity, representing 20 veterans groups. This bill really goes hand in hand with the previous bill. We need to have veteran centers at every community college because that's where our veterans start their college careers. And it's after 14 years of war, it's about time we do this. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael McGee with the Chancellor's Office Community Colleges. We've assisted the author, and we do not have a formal position of support, but we do support the concept and hope we can find a funding appropriation. Thank you.
Monica Christensen for Citrus College, Director of Veteran Center. I support Assembly Bill 393.
Trezor Bunker, representing all veterans of America, strongly support this bill.
Thank you, Mark McDonald, McCallum Group, on behalf of the Los Rios and South Orange County Community College Districts in support.
Ryan McElhaney at the Community College League of California, representing California's 72 community college districts in support.
Nancy Pancan Vargas, Army veteran, also supporting this bill.
Justin DeMartin, Sierra College veteran, also supporting this bill.
And if the other two witnesses at the table would like to give their name and what group they're with?
Good afternoon, Chairman and Committee. My name is Myra Marchington. I am a 10-year United States Marine Corps veteran. Also, I just wanted to reiterate that the VSC is not just a brick and mortar. It is a community, a family, a network of brothers and sisters who help each other, a safe haven where we can be ourselves without judgment. This is just a glimpse of what our VSC does provide for us. I highly encourage to support our military veterans through AB 393 to extend financial support to all veterans within our community college.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Saucedo, Army veteran, Iraq combat veteran. The Veteran Center has been a special sanctuary for me and my fellow veterans. I have, unfortunately, on multiple occasions, have had, panic attacks due to post-traumatic stress disorder and military sexual trauma issues, and I knew I could run into the vet center and find the help I needed. Even if it was just to vent or to cry or just have another vet hold me, I knew I was safe. And I knew I would not be judged for my actions. Being a single parent is not always easy, and I know that I can bring my child into the vet center and know that we are both welcome in there, and I trust the people that he's around. And I know that there are many, many more people like me that have the same issues, have bigger issues that definitely need a place to go. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to make the comment, thank both authors, Assemblymember Calderon and Assemblymember Hernandez, for bringing these bills forward. As a community college teacher, I had many vets in my class, in my classes, and at this point I just want to thank all the veterans here for their service. And I have a first by Mr. Linder, second by Mr. John Sawyer. Before I ask the Secretary to call the roll, I'll call Ms. Baker.
I think on behalf of all of us, I just want to say thank you very much. And you can call on any one of us anytime for how we can continue to be helpful. We are very, very grateful.
Madam Secretary.
Medina.
Aye.
Medina, aye. Baker. Aye. Baker, aye. Bloom. Aye. Bloom, aye. Chavez. Harper.
Aye.
Harper, aye. Irwin. Irwin, aye. Jones Sawyer. Jones Sawyer, aye. Levine. Linder. Linder, aye. Lowe. Santiago. Weber. Weber, aye. Williams. Williams, aye. 9-0.
Measure passes 9-0. I'll leave it open for members who want to add on. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. And now we'll move forward to item 16.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very briefly, thank you for giving our veterans the opportunity to speak. I know that you're very generous with your time. Thank you. Okay, so moving forward, we're moving forward with Assembly Bill 837. Mr. Chair and members, Assembly Bill 837 places the cap of $500,000 annually on all UC employees, including administrators, professors, and coaches. The purpose of the bill is pretty straightforward. UC cannot only look at tuition increases as a sole solution to balance its financial books. AB 837 provides an alternative solution to offset the tuition increases that hurt California students and their hardworking families. According to AFSCME's research, they calculate that this simple action will result in a net savings of $80 million for the UC. While the bill does not outline how the savings will be utilized, I think many of us here in the legislature would strongly support offsetting the tuition increases or re-examining its enrollment caps. Language from the bill: as a condition of receipt of state funding in the annual budget, the University of California shall not pay any of its employees or officers a salary that exceeds $500,000 in any fiscal year. As we continue to talk about income inequality in our state, the UC's actions frankly spread the crisis rather than taking its core mission to heart: institutions serving the people of California. It's a disservice to its purpose, to our taxpayers, and to our state that the UC would embrace policies that contribute to the growing gap between the rich and the poor in California. The simple fact that the UC is increasing student tuition while at the same time continuing to pay its staff over $500,000. Why do I say all of this? The UC system has close to 270,000 employees with an average income or wage of $43,520. While at the same time, the 5 highest paid positions in the UC belongs to coaches, all coming in over at $2.3 million annually. In addition, 29 employees make over $1 million. The top 100 make over $750,000 annually, and the top 400 make over $493,000 a year. According to AFSCME, total UC spending increased by 40% during the years between 07 and 13. So basically from the Great Recession to 13 timeframe, while spending on the UC's richest employees during that same period of time increased by 270% during the same time frame. Quite the contrast. The UC brings a new meaning to the 99% movement. The numbers demonstrate that UC pays its top 1% over $500,000. This is just absolutely irresponsible and unacceptable for a public institution. The UC will make an argument that the numbers are just used that are wrong, confusing, apples and oranges. In fact, it's the same argument they made before the Assembly Budget Committee earlier this year. They argue that most of the high-paid employees are paid by non-state funds and that it's only certain classifications, such as doctors and leading experts, that are paid high salaries. However, the UC public information on their website does not distinguish funding sources used to pay high salaries, nor does it clearly identify the staff groups limited to high pay categories. This non-disclosure is quite frankly misleading. The inner circle of the UC cannot be allowed to be the only one to know how taxpayer dollars are truly being allocated within the walls of its institution. That is why the second part of my bill is crucial. AB 837 requires employment statistics to be posted on a statewide website in order to promote greater transparency in the University of California. Let me also address the autonomy granted to the UC by the California Constitution. While the Constitution is clear about the UC's authority, it also states that the University of California is subject to legislative control as it may be necessary to ensure the security of its funds, the people's funds. While UC needs to remain competitive with other institutions, the greatness of the UC system is that it is a public institution that needs to serve taxpayers responsibly. People are not only attracted to the UC because of its salaries. The mission of the UC is what makes it golden. If the UC system has enough money to pay several of its staff a salary of over $500,000, it makes it difficult to believe the institution is struggling financially. The UC has a credibility problem on its hands today. This bill would take an important step to return the UC to its core mission. With me here today is Ms. Elizabeth Ortega, representing AFSCME, the sponsor of Assembly Bill 837. I'm also pleased to have Ms. Evelyn Nuno, a senior at UC Davis, to speak here on behalf of the bill. So with that, Ms. Ortega, please.
Before you begin, let me, as we're getting later in the day, I'm going to push the button and going to keep you to 2 minutes, 2 witnesses.
Sounds good. Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Ortega, and I'm the political director of AFSCME 3299, the University of California's largest employee union, representing more than 22,000 workers. So when it comes to the University of California and this year's state budget process, 3 interrelated subjects have dominated the discussion. First, that UC needs more state funding, about $100 million beyond the governor's initial budget proposal, to be exact. Without it, the UC Board of Regents has made it clear that they're going to force tuition hikes on students and cap enrollment for qualified California residents. The second is that UC must take action to address its cost drivers. One of the biggest cost drivers is the subject of today's hearings, the skyrocketing growth of the number of UC employees receiving annual salaries of excess of $500,000 a year. And finally, that public service, not personal enrichment, lies at the heart of the University of California's mission. AB 837 is the only bill currently pending before the state legislature that actually speaks to all 3 of these issues. And here's why. It saves $80 million. That's 80% of what UC says it needs to prevent a tuition hike. UC's annual spending on salaries greater than $500,000 per year has grown by 300%, or $200 million, since 2007. That's 7.5 times the rate of growth of all other UC spending combined. And Californians expect that their public servants, with UC administrators routinely call themselves when they come before this body, to sacrifice for the greater good. If public service is a value at UC and not just a talking point, then AB 837 is entirely consistent with UC's mission.
Your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and members. As I was previously introduced, my name is Evelyn Nuno. I'm a fourth-year undergrad at UC Davis. I'm the daughter of a construction worker and a insurance agent. I'm from Norwalk, California, with I have 4 siblings, and I'm the first in my family to go to post-secondary college. And I first started off at a JC in Fullerton College, and I was a student full-time, working full-time, and I thought, that was a challenge until I transferred to UC Davis, and I encountered a whole new challenge. I'd like to just paint you a picture about what that challenge looked like. So for me, I was trying to get by, surviving on $53 a quarter. That's 10 weeks. And I was struggling to wash my clothes. I was washing my clothes in the bathtub. I struggled to buy my own food. I had to buy food swipes to get into the cafeteria along with my tuition. That's what the financial aid paid for. And in order to get the necessities that I needed, like toilet paper, toothbrush, or just like a snack to have throughout the day, I had to sell those food swipes to other students in order to get actual money. So that's how I bought my actual necessities. And one time when I actually had money to buy just sandwich things, I was trying to make a sandwich and I cut my hand, and the knife actually went through my hand. I had to go to the doctor. And then even with insurance, I was billed $4,000. So on top of loans, on top of book debt, I also had health insurance debt. So that's how I was getting by my first year at UC Davis. And the UC is supposed to be about allowing people like myself, a first-year person in their family, to go to a 4-year institution who couldn't afford a world-class education. And if AB 837 doesn't pass, there will be thousands of students like me in the future. And the students are aware that there are only 2 ways to stop tuition hikes from going through, and that is through state funding, or the students are going to have to pay. I'm sure you've seen the protests, we all know. And it just doesn't make sense to us that people are asking the students to pay more because, and that just doesn't make sense because it just doesn't allow, it allows the cycle to continue of increasing tuition. And on the other hand, as was previously stated, that UC faculty, chancellors, and other elites are getting 20% raises, and they're justifying that by saying that they're correcting internal inconsistencies. And
your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to give Mr. Pelote 1 minute.
Mr. Chairman and members, on behalf of ASPEN, our 25,000 workers at UC, we support this bill because it's good public policy. We're all in this together. This goes back close to 30 years that the legislature has been wrestling with how to deal with the University of California. 30 years. And everybody have said that we need to rein this in. And I've seen time and time again that once you have approved the budget, then we will see 22 to 30% raises, and then sometime as high as $60,000 in bonuses. And then all of a sudden we have a bad few years, and we see where kids are being pushed out of the finance institution in the state of California because of tuition increases. Even with my unit, John Burton, who was the pro tem of the state senate, after leaving that office, Senator Don Parada signed him to help us negotiate a contract. And John finally came into our room and said, I'm done with these so-and-so people because they don't want to give you $1 and something. And then I'm in the urinal, and a young man said to me, I have empathy with you people, and he was making $475,000 a year. But the workers who clean the classrooms and make sure that it is ready for the kids to learn couldn't get $1.25. $1.25. And then no sooner than we finally got a contract, because Fabian and Don put the money in the budget, because we were required for service employees that if we wanted to get what we had been collectively bargained, we had to get you to put it in the budget for them. And then to have that followed with another 22% raise and a $30,000 bonus for people already making $400,000 and $500,000, and then not paying in the pension plan for 17 years while my people still had to put 2% in. It is time for transparency, it's time for the accountability, and it's time to hold this institution to the same standards that you hold me and the rest of Californians to, and that is to make sure that they don't continue to enrich themselves at the advantage and the disadvantage of those who are trying to get a good education in this state. We ask for your strong support of the bill from everybody on the committee. Please show that and move it forward.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support? If you would state your name and what group you're with.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Megan Brightwell here on behalf of the California Federation of Teachers in support.
My name's Tim Thrush. I'm a highly skilled healthcare professional and a dedicated public servant. I support this bill, and I urge you to support it as well.
Hello, my name is Michael Avant. I'm a public sector worker at UC San Diego. I urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Witnesses in opposition? Mr. Wattis, if you'd like to come to the table.
Chairman Medina and members of the committee, it's good to see you today. My name is Steve Juarez. I represent the University of California, and I'm here to express our vigorous opposition to this bill, and I'm going to explain why. We work very diligently to ensure that all our faculty and staff are appropriately compensated, not overcompensated, and that we also strive to make sure that what we do compensate them for is in line with current market conditions and a host of a lot of other factors that determine their salaries. Unfortunately, AB 837 would strike at the heart of our ability to both retain and recruit these talented individuals who serve the people of California every day. These are overwhelmingly faculty and staff associated with our academic medical centers. Over 89% of the folks that we're talking about, they aren't coaches, they aren't administrators. These are doctors, physicians, people who are both leading the way in terms of advancing technology and innovation, as well as training future leaders and serving and treating the people of California. So if this bill were implemented, it's the latter group, those folks who receive services from these folks, who would be most hurt by this bill, and not necessarily the professionals that we're talking about, but who are also recognized for their ability to not only train and teach and support current individuals, both on our faculty and staff, but also treat the people of California. And in a large number of cases, these are the same people that are generating revenue well beyond what they get compensated. And so that's another factor to take into account. Let me be clear about a couple of things. Had this measure been into effect 5 years ago, we would still be in the same fiscal straits that we find ourselves today, albeit probably with a lot less expertise and technical ability amongst our faculty. This bill will do very little to reduce the general fund cost increases or increase revenues that are needed to address our current funding shortfall in terms of our instructional program. This is because this bill fails to recognize that almost all of our highly compensated faculty and staff get their primary source of compensation not from state general fund, but non-state resources, such as fees that are paid by patients, income that we get from both federal and private grants, and a host of other funds that are typically restricted for specific uses, not for instruction. In fact, as I mentioned, it is important to note that 89% of these individuals are associated with our academic medical centers, primarily physicians. Thus, by broadly seeking to restrict all sources of income for positions receiving in excess of $500,000, the bill inappropriately would cap funds that are well outside the state budget and would not provide the savings that have been cited by this author or by the sponsor. That estimate also fails to take into account the sizable revenue that these folks generate as part of their normal daily routine. Over time, we will see some of our most talented faculty and staff who will likely be poached by other employers because of these restrictions. This bill will send an earth-shattering message, an ear-shattering message to those who might consider coming to the university in the future as well, including those in the lower ranks, because clearly we will be telling the world that we no longer view the value of their contributions and talents. This bill, in fact, serves to demonize the very individuals that we believe we should be applauding and heralding for their accomplishments and contributions. Finally, we believe that the section of the bill, Section 3, to provide additional compensation information is pretty much already addressed within the information that we give to the State Controller's Office as well as to what's on the UC website. Nonetheless, should the bill move forward, we would be happy to accord ourselves to those provisions, and should the bill not move forward, we remain committed to providing a level of scrutiny and disclosure that is appropriate for these positions. In closing, we would request that you consider the very negative ramifications of this bill and keep this bill with the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition? Questions or comments from the committee? Ms. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hernandez, I share strongly your concerns about the increased administrative costs in the UC system, both in terms of just the sheer number of new administrative positions they have per student, as well as the overall costs, whether they're related to salary or otherwise. I have a couple of questions and concerns based on the testimony you gave.
Sure.
You'd mentioned that in anticipation of UC's testimony, that they've said much of the people who may be getting higher salaries are in medical fields, and they're just, you question that based on the lack of data available out there.
Right.
If that data were out there and we could see it, and we could quantify how many people are and what their level of income is, and if the income's coming from research grants or other, would you still want to see a cap on the salaries? Would the disclosure of the information be enough? Because it sounded in your testimony that it was the lack of what you felt was transparency, so that we could evaluate that question of how many people actually have a salary that's $500,000 or more and where it's coming from. It's not to say I'm asking for amendments to your bill, but I just noticed that in the way you phrased your testimony, that seemed to be the problem that you were addressing, not just the administrative costs, but targeting it to individuals that may be a very small number and may be getting some of their income from non-state resources. It's a long way of asking the question.
Sure,
I apologize for that.
I appreciate the question, and it speaks really to the heart of the concern here for taxpayers. It's is a concern, is it beyond just the transparency issue and the hard $500,000 cap? Subsequent to the introduction of this legislation, the UC has communicated to my office that the employees making $500,000 or more, that they're not being paid by public funds in terms of the pensionable amount. Yet we've not been provided any evidence of that, so that continues to be a concern. And what we want to see is that we control these costs, because at the end of the day, we are a public institution. Our number one charge is to take care of the California citizenry, its students first and foremost. And it's difficult to say that we can stand and support the tuition increases when we're seeing the increases and then contrasted by a 270% increase for admin pay, and as compared to the average UC spending at 40%, it's hard to say we can support this happening, and these calls of poverty and difficulty, economic difficulty. My bill is looking to make sure that the taxpayers have a guarantee that what they pay for an individual does not exceed $500,000. My bill does not prohibit the University of California system from paying beyond $500,000 from private sources that are brought to the UC system through some type of grant or other outside sources, private. But we want to protect the citizen. It doesn't prohibit that from happening, but it does prohibit the use of taxpayers funding more than $500,000 annually.
With regard to your last statement, I just am looking at Section 2, subsection 92611.3, and it just says, as a condition of receipt of state funding, UC shall not pay its employers or officers a salary that exceeds $500,000. And you're saying that the bill says you can do that as long as that money doesn't comes from private sources. So I don't see the language in the bill that makes that the case, unless I'm misunderstanding what you're referring to.
I'm happy to, the bill moves forward, and I hope that the bill is able to move forward today, to have the conversation with all stakeholders, to develop language that is more clear on its intent. But my intent is to make sure that with regard to taxpayer dollars, that we can look every one of our voters in the face and their families and say that we are not spending more than $500,000 for the highest paid 1% elite of these institutions. The institutions, again, have subsequently, through the pressure, and I would call it positive pressure of this legislation, have thrown up a flag saying, well, we're not paying them. These $750,000, $1 million salaries aren't coming from. But that proof has not been provided to the assembly budget committees, and those requests have been made. They haven't been provided there, and they haven't been provided to my office. So we're still waiting, and that's why there is a strong concern about transparency. One of the biggest criticisms that the California legislature, like most legislatures in America, receive is that we do a good job in introducing legislation, but that we do a poor job in policing how our dollars are spent, how our programs are run, and if there's efficacy in the programs and funding that we put forth. This is about us doing our job. California families are saying, leaders, the people we elect, do something about this. We know the chancellors are living in homes that are provided by California taxpayers. Many of these homes are likened to mansions, and they have servants, and they have drivers, and they have all sorts of other perks that the taxpayers, when they find out about it, are unhappy about it. That contrasts the fact that the people that work at the University of California system, the people that work there, the close to 270,000 employees, are growing poorer every single year. And for the students that are attending, many of which children of these employees, it's getting harder and harder to attend. It's just a big contrast. The optics are bad. We're working hard in this legislature to make sure that we can restore the people's trust. That's what Assembly Bill 837 is about, and make sure that we rein in and live within our means, and that we reflect public institution.
I thank you, and I think based on what you've said, I today will be a no vote, but I look forward to reserving the right to change that. It comes to the floor, and you've had an opportunity to clarify in the language what you've mentioned with respect to the source of the money and the ability to go over $500,000 if it comes from private funds, and happy to work with you on that if that is helpful. But I appreciate your openness to further conversation about that.
I appreciate the question. Thank you.
Mr. Hernandez, I also just wanted to clarify that same point.
Yeah. So
with
can I
the
jump
author.
in quickly on that? So, sorry. So AB 837 does limit it to the $500,000 per year, and we're open to amending that. But what it does not do, it does not limit the tens of millions of additional perks that UC gets, such as car payments, housing allowance, moving costs, and even low-interest mortgages. So it does, AB 837 doesn't do anything to any of those things in addition to the pensions that CSU and community colleges are required to cap. It does nothing to cap any of those. So as far as the retention packages, that's still there. UC can, and they've stated many times that in addition to pay, the perks that come with working for the university is also an attraction to get some of the high-level doctors and physicians, et cetera, that are getting these perks.
I'm going to restate the question to the author of the bill. Sure. Because I just want to be clear on the same point that Ms. Baker made, and that is because it's not stated in the bill whether the money, whether your intent is not to, because as it's written, right, withholding state funding in the budget to the University of California if it pays if it pays its employees or officers a salary that exceeds $500,000. So I'm just trying to clarify that.